Gata for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga. Varochana Mahamudra. Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya.
Please stand for the chanting of the refuges.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And discover,
Uncover.
that's not right.
Uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return for another 5 minutes of meditation.
join me in some simple stretches. Gently tugging on the earlobes. Running the fingers on the neck. And then lengthening the spine. Chin back, eyes back. Feeling some space between the vertebrae. And then stretching up. And exhaling forward. Stretching to the left. Inhaling up. And exhaling to the right. Now twisting in the spine. Looking over the left shoulder. And then the other direction. Now placing fists on the thighs and circling to the right. Breathing at the top and exhaling. Changing directions. And then some side bends.
I'll just ask people to.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Feel free to turn, or if you feel comfortable sitting, on the carpet. Oh, thank you. You're invited. Testing. How's the sound? Louder?
No, it's
Yeah.
good.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. I know I have a softer voice. And Haju, can you remind me, shall I aim to be done by 11:15?
At the latest.
At the latest.
Maybe 20.
20 after? Okay.
And please introduce yourself since.
I will. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jagwa Kelly Davenport. I'm usually sitting right there, and today I'm sitting up here. And I am one of the newest Dharma teachers within our organization. I was just ordained over the summer. And it's been a little while since I've given a talk, so I may not have met all of you before. So if you are new or if we have not met, nice to meet you and welcome. And tomorrow happens to be Valentine's Day. And so Haji Sunam asked me to give a talk today about love. And I feel like the topic is one that you have to kind of sneak up on a little bit with the poem. And so I've found a few poems that I will be sharing throughout my talk today. And I apologize, I didn't write them out longhand, so they're on my phone. So this is by a contemporary American poet whose name is Ada Limon. And this is called What It Looks Like to Us and the Words We Use. All these great barns out here in the outskirts, black creosote boards knee-deep in the bluegrass. They look so beautifully abandoned, even in use. You say they look like arks after the seas dried up. I say they look like pirate ships. And I think of that walk in the valley where Jay said, "You don't believe in God?" And I said, "No, I believe in this connection we all have to nature, to each other, to the universe." And she said, "Yeah, God." And how we stood there, low beasts among the white oaks, Spanish moss and spider webs, obsidian shards stuck in our pockets, woodpecker flurry. And I refused to call it so. So instead, we looked up at the unruly sky, its clouds in simple animal shapes we could name, though we knew they were really just clouds, disorderly and marvelous and ours. And I feel like when we try to put language around this idea of love, it feels a little bit like trying to give names to the shape of the clouds. And that's why I loved that poem. And so I have a few stories that I want to tell. And also I want to introduce, maybe for the first time, or maybe you've encountered this teaching before, of some of the ways that the Buddhist teachings help us think about love. And so a little bit of a framework that we can look at as a more specific way of talking about love. So next weekend, we will celebrate the Parinirvana service, which is a special day on our Buddhist calendar. You may have noticed there's a different Buddhist Buddha figure on the altar today of the reclining Buddha. And this symbolizes the Buddha at the end of his life before he passed into nirvana, hence the name Parinirvana service. And so next week we will hear sort of what was the Buddha teaching at the end of his life, where this time was especially poignant as he was attempting to really remind his disciples, what was the most important thing that I taught you? And one of the things that we'll hear is the Buddha saying, if you look at everything that I've taught, it's really just been one thing, which is the truth of suffering and how to alleviate it. And so I want you to keep that in mind as we look at some of these ideas and practices about love in a Buddhist context. But maybe just to start with a more personal story. So about probably 16 years ago, before I knew the man who would become my husband, he was living in Portland, Oregon, and he had just quit his job under extremely difficult circumstances and found himself unable to find work. So he was out of work for, I think, 6 months or something like this. And he went to see someone to help with advice, how can I work with my situation? And they said, well, the most important thing is to have a schedule for yourself. You should make sure to get some exercise and, maybe consider doing some meditation, something like this. So he developed a routine where every day he would walk from his apartment up to the top of Mount Tabor, which is an extinct volcano in the center of the city, and it has a beautiful park and huge trees that grow there. And he started listening to podcasts from a Buddhist center out in Redwood City, California, and developed a practice of each person that he would pass on his walk, he would greet them, good morning. And then came to discover through these podcasts the practice of metta meditation. And so suddenly his world included the folks, in his immediate friend circle, but then everyone on his walk that he could do metta practice for, so loving kindness practice. And so that's how I first got introduced to this practice. And I distinctly remember when we first, not long after we had first met, he introduced me to this podcast, and it was a recorded metta meditation. And the teacher was Gil Fronsdal. And he leads you through a body scan and then through this beautiful practice where you visualize in concentric circles people that you have uncomplicated loving feelings for and you wish them well. And then you slowly expand out the circle to people that you have great difficulty with. And Gil describes it as a practice of softening the crust of the heart. And the first time that I tried to do metta practice, usually at the end, you then offer that same loving kindness to yourself. And I was so surprised to find that that was the hardest offering to make for me at that time in my life. I could easily do it for my friends and family, and I even could start to approach understanding some of the complicated people in my life. But when I thought about offering it to myself, I just felt very clenched up, and I appreciated Gil talking about the crust of the heart, because then at that moment I had the word to know what I was experiencing. And so I guess that was my first encounter with this practice of loving kindness meditation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this teaching of metta and 3 other teachings of the Buddhist conceptions of love. So if we go back to what I said earlier about the Buddha reminding people at the end of his life, really what I've taught is just the one thing. I would like to think about this teaching of love as one of the ways that we can both encounter our own suffering. So in my case, noticing how difficult it was for me to offer that kindness to myself. And also practices where we can begin to develop some facility with working with that suffering. I think it's really about learning to live in a different context. And so when we look at the Buddhist name for these states of love, it translates as a divine abode. And so the Pali word is Brahma Vihara, and Vihara is a place that you dwell. And Brahma is a word sort of connoting divineness. So I think I have another poem. Yeah. Oh, I remember this one. Okay. So this is by Anna Spear, and it's called A Double Rapture. Because there is no me, and because I feel how much there is no me. Okay, so what are these 4 divine abodes? So as I mentioned, Vihara, Brahma Vihara, Vihara means this dwelling place or abode, sort of an old-fashioned word for home. And I think that word is pointing to the notion that we're learning to dwell in a different mind state, maybe a bigger frame of reference than we would normally encounter. And so the 4 Brahma Viharas are metta, which I mentioned, and this has been translated as friendliness or loving kindness. Karuna, which can be translated as compassion. Mudita, which can be translated as empathetic joy, or sometimes you will hear the term sympathetic joy. So taking joy in the happiness of others. And upekkha, which can be translated as equanimity. And these are said to have sort of near enemy mind states. So these are the big open mind states. And then what are they the antidote to? So we could say they are the antidote to jealousy, pity, envy, and indifference. So sometimes the Buddhist teaching will be paired with sort of two halves of the coin to help illuminate what is the mind state that we're really talking about and what might be its antidote. And as I was thinking about how to illustrate these, I didn't know, I thought I should tell the story. So this fall, my husband and I and a couple of friends drove up all the way to the Upper Peninsula in Marquette, Michigan. And we set out one day to go on a hike. And it was a beautiful day, about 55 and sunny and a blue sky, and all the trees had changed colors. And our goal was to hike up this small mountain called Hogback Mountain. And I think it's named because the rock outcropping looks like the back of a boar or something. So I wasn't entirely sure what kind of mountain we were going to be hiking to. I thought, well, it can't be that big, because this is still Michigan after all. But then when we got up through the woods to the base of where the hill climb began, it was much steeper than I had anticipated. And I realized that over the last couple of years that I've really been kind of staying in my house, and I felt kind of out of breath, and I was so daunted by this steep, rocky trail. Then I saw some other folks coming down, and I thought, okay, well, they've made it up and down again, so maybe I can do this. So I had a walking stick. Everyone else was already ahead of me. So I made it up through the first pass of this rocky kind of meandering trail where you had to like hold on to small trees as you were pulling yourself up the side of the hill. And as soon as we got up to where the tree line was, I saw that there was almost a rock scramble to get to the top. No trees really, just big boulders and a few little passes you could kind of like mountain goat your way up. And no one else seemed very perturbed by this. But I thought that there is no way I can climb to the very top of this mountain. And, you know, my friends had already kind of scrambled up the rocks and were shouting about the view. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to stay here. I'll just stay here and I'll wait for you and take all your time that you want. And then when you're done, just, you know, come back and then it'll be okay. And my husband said, you know, I'll help you make it the last, it's only 50 feet, you know, you can do this. And I said, no, I am perfectly happy staying here at the bottom. And he just waited. And he said, look, here's how you do it. All you have to do is put your hands against this rock, and then you can brace your feet and go sideways. And then once you get up there, it's going to be flat. And so he kind of demonstrated, and he said, you know, I'm going to hold your hand and help you do this. And so I did it and made it up, and the view was amazing. You could see all the way to Lake Superior and the city beyond that. And then if you turned around to the other side, you could see all their mountains and the trees. And it was just an amazing view. Just kind of the perfect fall day in the forest. And I said, why didn't you just leave me at the bottom? And he said, well, I didn't want you to miss out on the view. And so that story came to me this morning when I was thinking about how do I illustrate some of these qualities. And I think that he demonstrated, in some ways, all four of these mind states. Kindness, you know, here, take my hand. Equanimity. We can just wait here a little bit until you feel ready. Compassion. You know, I'm not going to leave you. I see that you're suffering. And then, of course, empathetic joy. I didn't want you to miss the view. And of course, it was worth it to go up to the top. And going down was much less stressful. So I have one more poem then to go with that story. This is by Jenny George, and it's called Intelligence. How easily the deer move between the field and the woods. Only we know a thing by its periphery. The meadow edged with trees, or happiness with its horizon of pain. From inside the house, I watch them grazing, their pooled memory guiding them into the shade, then into the grass again. So, as I said, for me, it was not easy to begin to work with some of these practices. You may be familiar with this idea of metta meditation, where you consciously meditate on phrases around wishing other beings wellness, peace, and happiness. And then you can widen your concentric circles out to people who you may not know or people who you have difficulty with. But I would say that perhaps for some of us, it's not the easiest to offer that same kindness to ourselves. And I've heard from a lot of people lately that at this point in the pandemic, they just feel really exhausted, lonely, just kind of running on fumes. And I think in some ways, the Brahma Viharas, while they don't give a direct instruction about self-compassion, when we look at the teaching, really self-compassion is the ground on which all of those other mind states can arise. And a couple of months ago, we had a wonderful lecture from a teacher out in California who is quite an advanced scholar and has been also a practitioner of Korean Zen. And he said that the reason he got interested in spiritual study and practice was that as a young man, he had the idea in his mind, or the question, how can I live a life without harming other beings? And that this was a koan for him. And I think in some ways, my version of that would be, how is it that our self-compassion can heal others? And I think that the teaching of the 4 Brahma Viharas, or these mind states of love, really rely on starting with ourselves first. And that's where we find the fertile ground to offer that same kindness to other people. So it's not about self-confidence or ego per se, but rather recognizing, like in that poem, how much I feel that there is no me, and how much I recognize that, and that is the rapture in the poem's words. But really, this self-compassion is an act of recognizing interconnection. And I had a couple of pieces I wanted to read from a couple of other Buddhist teachers that speak to this in more detail. So we've been practicing a lot with hearing from Thich Nhat Hanh, who recently died. And so he writes, love in Buddhism always begins with yourself. When you go home to yourself, you recognize the suffering in you. Then the understanding of your own suffering will help you to feel better and to love, because you feel the completeness and the fulfillment in yourself. True love does not just choose one person. When true love is there, you shine like a lamp. And then this other one, which I think speaks to sort of the practice of working with the Brahma Viharas, or perhaps what we might experience if we practice with them. And this is from Sakyong Rinpoche, who says that true love is the natural energy of our settled mind. And so, one thing then perhaps that I can offer as just a practical way to experiment with this is a little formula that I heard our Dharma teacher, Kusa, who lives out in North Carolina, give us this weekend at a meeting of our training students and teachers. And I had sort of a wonderful formula for, first of all, noticing where in my life might I be responding to a feeling of or a lack of self-compassion. So just first noticing, how is that showing up in your life? The second part is when you notice your response to that situation, do you notice whether your response brings a sense of ease, a sense of completeness or healing, or does it contribute to suffering? So noticing your response. And then finally, the third part is if you find that your response was contributing to ease, how can you turn that into a vow? Like, I will practice with this now more intentionally. And I think I sort of stumbled across this just organically, but I appreciated how he frames that as a way we can work with this type of teaching. Several years ago, when I was studying the precepts, as some of you are doing right now in practice to become a Buddhist and take precepts as part of that ceremony, I have a distinct memory of driving to work one day, and I couldn't turn off the thoughts in my mind of everything that I had done wrong the day before and everything I needed to do that day that I was worried about. And I remember writing this in my journal, and I shared it with a friend. And my friend said, and I think I said to my friend, you know, I felt like my thoughts were just sticking all these pins in me. Like at the end of the drive to work, I was this pin cushion. And my friend said, you're the pin cushion, but you're also the person sticking in the pins. And so that working with the first, the precept of do not harm, it had never occurred to me, I think, until that moment that I was included in that precept. And so I really appreciated my friend pointing out that you may be the pincushion, but you're also the person sticking in the pins. And I realized, oh, okay, so I can be included in the non-harming. And so I started to do some little experiments, usually at work, because that's where I spend a lot of my time and where I get most triggered. So some of my little experiments were things like, if I was walking up to a doorway and there was someone else there, I would pause and hold the door open for them and invite them to go in front of me as many times a day as I could and remember to do that. And always for me, that learning to offer that gesture of kindness to others really made me feel so good. And it was a way that I could start to approach building some of that self-compassion. Another experiment that I did was if I was in a meeting and I felt the urge to say something, and usually my thoughts come to me pretty quickly and I want to share my ideas, and it's easy for me to just kind of blurt it out. I would stop and wait so that I was not the first person to speak. And it really transformed kind of my experience of work, where it didn't feel like I was constantly having to play this game of protecting myself, but that I could relax some of that tension and see myself as more interconnected. And that really was what helped me offer more kindness to myself. Yeah, okay, well, I think for another time, I will do a longer guided metta meditation for everyone. I don't think that we'll have time to do it today, Unless
Oh, 5 minutes we have.
5 minutes? Okay, well, let's do 5 minutes. So please take a meditation posture that is comfortable, relaxed, yet alert. And then just for this one, you can close your eyes. Just beginning to relax and exhaling to expel tension. Passively watching the breathing in and breathing out. Now call to mind someone you love very dearly. In your mind's eye, see their face and silently speak their name. Feeling your love for this being like a current of energy coming through you at the heart. Let yourself experience how much you want this person to be free from fear, how intensely you desire that this person be released from greed and ill will, from confusion and sorrow, and the causes of suffering. That desire is loving kindness. Continuing to feel that warm energy flowing through the heart. Invite now into your mind's eye those with whom you share daily life. Family, close friends, people you may work with. Let them appear around you and look on their faces one by one. Among these beings may be some with whom you are uncomfortable or in conflict. With those especially, experience your desire that each be free from fear, from hatred, from ignorance, and the causes of suffering. Now, in a wider concentric circle, allow your relatives and acquaintances to appear, and indeed all beings with whom you share this planet. To these beings as well, direct the same current of loving kindness. That each of them be released from suffering. By the power of our imagination, let us move out now beyond this world into the universe. The current of loving kindness is not affected by physical distance, and we can aim it now as if a beam of light to all centers of conscious life. May all beings be happy. Out there in the universe, in the darkness, we can turn now and behold our own planet as if from a distance. We see it suspended there in the blackness of space, like a jewel, turning in the light of its sun. Direct toward our home this current of love and earnest prayers for healing. As we draw nearer to our home planet, behold the being you know best of all, the person you've been given to be in this lifetime. You know this person's need for love, the commitments this being worked so hard to carry. Let the face of this being, your own face, appear before you. With that same current of loving kindness, feel how deeply you desire this being to be free from fear, released from greed and hatred, liberated from ignorance and confusion, and all the causes of suffering. The great loving kindness linking you to all beings is now directed to your own self. Feel the fullness of it. Thank you all for being here this morning, for listening. I hope you have an opportunity in the coming days and weeks to practice with loving kindness or the other Brahma Viharas. Or maybe just write a poem. Thank you. Haju.
Lead us in the four great vows.
Four great vows and then announcements? Okay. So please join me in reciting the four great Bodhisattva vows. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Announcements? Okay. Would you like this?
think I'm in the picture. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Jagwa. That was such a lovely talk. Happy Valentine's Day, too. So in case I hadn't introduced myself to you all, I'm Samoon. I've been here at the temple for about 5 years, part of the Sa family. And as you'll find out too, as you're studying the precepts, that you'll have a family name as well. It's like the first syllable of your name is shared with everyone in your family and then at the temple. So here we are on such a nice February day, and a little bit cloudy, but hopefully that won't deter you from going out and enjoying your day. I have a couple announcements to give. Thanks. A few things coming up at the temple, and thank you. We've got, of course, 10 o'clock services every Sunday, but now we've also got services at 4 p.m., which you may have heard of before or even been to. Tong San's going to be talking, giving the Dharma talk today. And that'd be something nice in the future if you've already been to the 10 o'clock. Let's see, we've got Introductory meditation course coming up, and it's actually this week. I think it's a Thursday on February 17th, and it's in person this time. So that would be nice. I believe it's around 6:30 here at the temple.
6:30 to 8:30.
Here in the Buddha Hall, 6:30, 8:30. Okay, good. Yeah, I should take a refresher course there. They're always good to take again and again. We've got yoga classes. They're Tuesdays, 6:30 to 8 o'clock, 8:15 or so. I met Dylan here yesterday, or he came. Let's see, Tong San, she'll be there. I'll be there. And David Black's a wonderful teacher. Let's see. And we've also got a one-day retreat for, it's no longer the one-day retreat.
Announcements. Yep.
It'll be the next time. So let's see. I know we've also got Recovery Dharma, again, named downstairs in the study. And that's the same as every week. And before I hand this off to Haju, I was wondering, does anyone else have any announcements or questions? Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for any contributions you care to give. We have a fishbowl outside for monetary donations, and this temple runs on all of us. And hope to see you coming back soon. Have a good day.
Take your mask off.
This is when my ears stick out. I feel a little like Yoda. These kind of pointy ears. I've been asked on behalf of our clergy to announce that we're going to be having a leadership transition. And some of you have already heard of it because there have been some meetings. And there are going to be more meetings for those members and friends to talk about it and its implications. It is basically, in a nutshell, that Maum will be assuming the Joel Rector or Director duties for this temple, which I have had for a number of years. And I will be doing more of a teaching role, continuing education for our training students and other particular senior students, leading longer retreats, and also still working in the garden. That's my baseline, working in the garden. So just so you know, and it's not something that is going to happen right away. We've been in the process for a couple of years, really. Mom coming along, I think she's so stable in keeping this crucible of a temple going. And so we'll do a formal ceremony, a special ceremony in July to denote that transition. And I'm not sure where it will be, here or perhaps at our Chicago temple. But of course, everybody would be invited to attend. So look forward to a notice about special meetings so that we can talk about it more. Mom will be in the meetings, I will be, Hayun, Jagwa, as we are available, we'll be present. So, Mom has I can't hear her.
Also difficult to speak through masks. So there, for those present here, there is a sign-up sheet in the lobby if you're interested in attending one of the small group meetings. Most of you are already on a list, so you will receive an email invitation with the meeting date that you're being invited to. But just to be sure that you get in a meeting, it wouldn't hurt to sign up, and then we'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
So please stand so we can do our 3 formal vows. I apologize for not being able to stay to greet everyone because we're starting the second session in our Preparing for a Good Death practice period next door in the Sangha house, and we still have to unlock the door and set up the system. So would you be the greeter this morning for everyone? So you can. Thanks again for your talk. You're welcome.
We have to 4 o'clock today so we can make all our absent questions.
All of them?
So we did last time.
Only a few people.
Yeah, okay, maybe the back rows.
The back rows, I think, no. We can always pull some more down. There were only 2 people last time,
Oh, wow.
so. I was just thinking about that. 4 o'clock was gonna be happening.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you can go for that.
You won't be late for 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Should I take those? The one in the back? It looks like we're gonna put the register back in the corner of here now.
Yeah. Nice and neat in the front.
I'm sorry, Bob, I told her to take some of that. But we can reserve getting,
Well, I'm starting to create so much confusion. Like, it's fine, I got, it's probably going to be enough for the 4 o'clock. So continue.
Okay.
The provisional plan. I apologize.
you did, we have an answer for it.
Yeah.
We need to end this.
Yes.
We go through it, and I promise you didn't get to read.
Yeah, we'll be sending out again in a reminder for everyone to meeting for next week. Well,